but DeFi and CeFi relationships have never been easy, and it seems they're only getting more tricky with time. My name is Daria Krasnova. I'm a managing editor at BeInCrypto, and here I have 4 seasoned experts who will help us to answer this vital question. Can DeFi and CeFi really coexist? Before we start, can you guys please introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrei. I'm the head of DeFi for LI.FI. We are a DeFi transaction router powering cross-chain swaps, same-chain swaps, and DEX via DEX and bridge aggregation.
Yeah, Tomasz Wojewoda, BNB Chain, head of BD. Excited to be here.
Vadim, Krekotin. I'm a founding partner of a group of companies with the core business of Cryptomeria Capital, which is a VC invest into the Web3 companies. We heavily invest into the ZK protocol and infrastructure, soft infrastructure on the blockchain. Also, we do have a media company called Metaverse Post with almost 3 million monthly active users. So I'm in crypto for like almost 7 years. No, a little
You're
bit.
a survivor.
2 times already, so definitely have some things to say today.
And I'm Laura. I'm a co-founder of Peccala. We're a next-generation digital asset manager, and we're basically making it super easy for new people into crypto to invest and get exposure to this asset class. We are managing assets thanks to our proprietary trading technology. Super happy to be here. Got into crypto 5 years ago from a completely different background, so yeah.
Another survivor, amazing. Thank you. So my first question is, many OGs, crypto OGs argue that CeFi compromises the core principles of crypto itself. But the proponents of CeFi contend that a balance still can be struck. What do you think about that? Can we find this subtle balance and how to do it?
Yeah, for sure. So the balance between how much CeFi and DeFi in the whole finance industry is something that balances off as time goes by. So in the beginning, 10 years ago when Bitcoin was basically just an experiment, and by we, I mean, all the finance people were, naysayers to Bitcoin, putting it in a corner, thinking that it's not going anywhere. Well, we're now, 10 to 12 years later, seeing that CeFi and DeFi can actually coexist, and, that DeFi is actually taking more and more space in the whole traditional finance space, kind of eating the lunch of many TradFi people. So I definitely think that they can coexist, and we see that, by pure DeFi protocols like lending markets or perpetual swaps now being traded on chain, and that's the first step. That is the first good step that goes into the right direction of those two coexisting together.
Please?
Yeah, look, I think as people realize the failure of our traditional systems, right? I mean, it was just this year, right? Silvergate, we had Silicon Valley, many years ago, Bitcoin started, Lehman Brothers, etc. As we see failure of these traditional institutions, centralized institutions, more and more people will look for an alternative, and that alternative is decentralized, it's DeFi. And I do think that over time, there's only one winner, and that's, decentralization.
Don't you think we're speaking from the center of the crypto bubble? I mean, DeFi is still very complex.
It is very complex, but every day it's getting easier, right? So you have to look at the trend. Managing your keys, managing your assets in a decentralized way is getting easier and less expensive and faster every day, right? The innovation, we talk about the winter, but really there's no winter for developers. This is like a great time for developers to build, and the innovations that have been built in the last 12 months are staggering, and they're gonna come to surface now, right? We have account abstraction wallets, social recovery. DeFi is just gonna get easier.
Yeah. Right. Please, light side.
Right. So Definitely, answering your question, can CeFi and DeFi coexist? We should look at this from the bird view and understand the whole concept of what is like a new economy, right? So we as a VC, when we invest, we definitely look at this in the long-term perspective. How we see that CeFi and DeFi, they will definitely coexist. What is DeFi today, right? Is like, if we look at the whole world economy, is like 0.00 something, like a small fraction. And in 10, 15, 20 years, it will be like 15% of the world economy. But it's not going to be like 100% of the world economy, world trade and stuff like that. We still have governments, we have a lot of limitations, we have regulations, and user experience. Because in DeFi, as colleagues mentioned, that user experience are quite like, complicated. You cannot like easily transfer your funds. You have to have your wallet. You have to store it properly and stuff like that. But what I'm saying that in decades we will see the coexisting world when we have centralized part and decentralized part, right? So it definitely will have like a bridges between that. But in centralized world, you are a citizen of the country. You have your passport. In decentralized world, you can be the cat or your avatar or whatever, like something which is like decentralized and could be anonymous. You can also say that it's yours, but still. You don't need to be like, Biden with your citizenship. You probably will be, linked with your digital identity, which can say a lot about your virtual character. Where you go, what products you use, what, DEXs you use, and how much you trade and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is, from now, we have a huge difference, huge gap to fulfill with the good products in decentralized finance. And how these two worlds will coexist depends on all of us here.
But Vadim, why does it matter if it's easier if all of a sudden, poof, everything that you have is gone, right? Because somebody made that decision. Somebody decided to take your assets because they have control over them. So I think, yes, DeFi is a little harder, but at least you're in charge of your own destiny versus trusting somebody else.
That's the issue, because you have to be in charge of your own things. And this is one of the biggest fear for a lot of newcomers to the industry. What's going to be if I lose my address, private keys, and if I cannot like open it tomorrow, where is my Bitcoins, who I should call? In your bank, you can call to your customer service and restore it anytime. But in a decentralized world, you have to take a responsibility. As the majority of the people in the world, they afraid of it a lot. So we should like work on it. We're still in a very early stage. Maybe we will find a solution how to store it properly in the decentralized world. But for now, it's still like in an early stage. So we definitely should.
Laura, please.
Yeah, I was going to add a point, because I think they do need to coexist long term, just because from my point of view, I mean, we're always, with what we're building, we're always starting from the user point of view. And ultimately, it's a spectrum. There are some users who want to have full autonomy, who want to have full control. But there's also users who don't want that. There are users who don't trust themselves, like with, keeping a seed phrase. There are users who are super scared of losing access to all of their funds. And their biggest worry is not that someone who's gonna, take away their funds. Their biggest worry is that they are not reliable enough to actually manage it themselves. So those users are already here, and I don't think this will change. That's just inherent, human behavior. So I think they should coexist, because that spectrum, I think, will still be true in terms of users, will still be true in 10 years from now. Just to reply though to Tomasz's point about, in a centralized world, there is definitely the risk that the company gets away with your funds. But I mean, this year has been crazy in terms of hacks and issues in the DeFi world as well. I think the last number from Certic was like 1.4 billion was lost. So I'm not sure that DeFi is also those numbers are so scary to people. So I'm not sure that this is also the best approach, right?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are large, but the CeFi numbers are so much larger. I mean, Lehman Brothers was 800 billion. Silicon Valley, what was it, 80, 60 billion? So I still think that, I mean, we can't talk about DeFi like dangerous. 800 billion, that's dangerous.
No, I mean, I don't disagree. I think at the end of the day, we still need both of them. And I think, especially coming from a world where what we're developing at Peccala is kind of an hybrid, we definitely, like I talk to users every day who are like on such, like at the beginning of their journey, because that's who we target. And even as we're talking about things for ourselves that seem so easy, like every day I have to walk people through how do I, like why I need to do like a KYC, wait, how do I send funds from my wallet to this? Like it's not that easy. And a lot of our users are just plainly saying to us, like, I want to get exposure, I want to diversify. I don't want to spend any time doing the research. I just don't want it. And I think, those users, CeFi is definitely the way for them.
Yeah, right. But guys, again, TradFi is even worse, Like it got hacked 100 times more, and the losses are crazy. Yeah. Okay, let's look at the DeFi and CeFi from the user's perspective. One of the points in favor of CeFi is friendly user interfaces. So it's attracting users who want to simplify the experience. So the question is, how can DeFi, which is traditionally complex, enhance its interfaces to match CeFi's ease?
Yeah. So first, I would address Vadim's point with a question by asking if you guys, and this is a question for all of you, if you think CDeFi is a better answer than, CeFi versus DeFi, DeFi power users versus the regular guy who just has a bank account. That's, the first point. And the second point, now in DeFi, we actually do see a bunch of, because this is a UX problem, and we do see a bunch of solutions like LI.FI, for example, in which we're aggregating all the chains, DEXs, and bridges that any power user and regular users would need to bridge from any token on any chain. Because right now there are probably 100 bridges and 100 scaling solutions, and no one knows who to pick and what's the best route. So, this is just one example of a solution. There's also aggregation for lending protocols, for perpetual swaps, for trading. So I think that the whole user experience goes in the right direction. I personally don't believe that CDeFi is the answer, but I'm curious to hear that part's answer. So yeah, I think we're going in the right direction.
I think innovation is happening really, really quickly. Order book, decentralized order book exchange 2 years ago was a horrible experience. On Ethereum, 12-second block times, it was just dumb. There was no point of using it. Today, on fast chains like OPBNB, it works. It's great. It feels just like a centralized experience. It's the same interface. You can do more or less the same things. And I think, if you haven't tried it in the last few months, try it, because the experience has really, really changed. Developers basically have done what they told us they will do. They improved a lot of things. Wallets have to improve, but I think you will see some announcements soon. Yeah, the innovation's coming.
Right. First of all, thanks for a good question. What is CDeFi? Let's talk about the term, right? Centralized finance. So it sounds quite interesting. I would say it's still centralized finance, right? If you have centralized core, it's still centralized. If you have some features which is decentralized, so still you have centralized core. Majority of the DEXs right now, especially perpetual DEXs, which claim themselves as a DEX, they still have centralized matching engine, like DYDX, and you name majority of them. So we've been talking with other panelists before this about ZK a lot. So we invest into ZK. Why? Because we believe that decentralized exchanges, DEXs, using ZK rollups and ZK technology probably could solve this, probably. So we see a bunch of interesting projects that claim they can solve it. So we tried. We happy to invest to them, because probably if the solution works, it's going to be huge, right? So by us answering your question, so still centralized, decentralized, it doesn't really matter, right? So as long as you have a very good experience, and your question about what is like, the problem for DEX to have very good experience, if you go to DEX, you don't have much of liquidity. You still go to Binance. If you want to, swap your tokens, or if it's like a small token, so just like something which is only listed on Uniswap, of course you go there for, swapping in the pools. But for large liquidity, especially for institutional investors, you still prefer large, reputable, regulated exchanges where you will go and transfer big amounts of money, where it's not like it's not about 1,000 or 5,000 $. It's about like hundreds of millions in one transaction, right? So you never can do it in Uniswap. So it's definitely something that we need to think about. Like, okay, in DEX, what kind of experience we should have? I believe in one thing if we talk about mass adoption, right? So every product which starts with connect your wallets will die. Yes, for us, for crypto people, it's like normal. We go there, we have our wallets, we know how to store the things, but for mass adoption, it's really scary. What is connect your wallet? Connect my real wallet, so I need to understand it first. I don't really want to spend a lot of time. That's what Lara mentioned just recently. So we need to find solutions how people still can be using it with their own experience which they used to have in their bank application. And after that, of course, we can have mass adoption even for decentralized solution, which probably can be with a centralized core, decentralized features, and why not?
Yeah. I mean, I can only echo what Vadim just said, but I think another point, which I think is interesting, and I would love to hear your perspective on this, is what I also always hear from our users is about the regulations, about the protections, about what if something happens, because with all the news that they hear, they're like, okay, probability is high that something will happen either to my funds, to whatever the exchange that I use. But what happens then? And I'm kind of curious from your point of view, because I think that's one of the key characteristics of CeFi that reassures users is the fact that they are actually regulated, that the users have a way to turn, someone to turn to in case there's an issue, as Daria mentioned before as well. There's a way that they could be compensated if something does happen. And every time I've had discussions with super hardcore DeFi people, they don't want to hear anything about regulation. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think about this, because it feels to me that it would have to be kind of an evolution of DeFi to get to mass adoption.
Well, actually, that was my next question. CeFi gives people a sense of security because of compliance, because they do follow the regulatory landscape and so on. So how does DeFi can provide the same sense of security?
I mean, let's be honest. People are asking for regulation after they're losing money. They should ask for regulations before they're betting
that's true.
their money in an online gambling casino. And this is just my short answer to this, but I'll leave Tomasz to continue.
I mean, maybe I'm just different, right? But CeFi does not feel secure for me, right? Biggest banks,
as well as
most of the banks in US are insolvent at this point. And I know that, a lot of people in this room know it, but my kids still put money in those banks. I'm like, for me that doesn't make sense, but I do acknowledge that I'm probably in minority, not in majority. I think that this entire movement around DeFi also is a bit of a social movement, right? We don't teach people how to manage their money in schools. We just basically say, put it in a bank, put it in this institution, trust us, trust us, trust us. And they keep failing us. So eventually, I hope we will learn that we can trust them and we need to do it on our own. It is difficult, sure, but it's money. It's very important to our survival. I think we should get better at managing it and securing it. And I think that the DeFi are the tools that allow us to do it. I'm in charge of my own destiny as opposed to trusting, some guy or somebody else, right?
But what about the people that don't have the skill set to do so? Because I hear you, and I, on some level I do agree with you, right? But if I look at the people I grew up with, not everybody would be able to fully manage their funds. Like some people don't have the skill set to do that.
I think it's a skill set that you have to learn, just like you have to learn how to read and write. It's something that we should teach in schools, and it shouldn't be as difficult as it is today. Completely agree that today it's too difficult, only a few people can, self-custody, etc. That will get easier, and I think as it gets easier, more people will adopt it. I think better is an enemy of good, and I think DeFi is better, and it's just going to start winning and winning. It will take many years, but I think it will win.
Yeah, it's a good point, but at the same time, let's understand that we are on a very early stage of our industry, right? So I really like to say as an example, when the cars, automobile, when they just appeared like 100+ years ago, it was the rules, law for the person, real person with the red flag, go just in front of the car, and only after that the car can go with like a 5 km/h, and it was like for 20 years or something. So for regulator, for the governments, for the authorities, it definitely takes a lot of time to understand what it is. What is this technology? How it could be used? Where is the risks? In my personal experience, I've been talking with the Chinese, Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, and Abu Dhabi, European regulators, and all of them have a different point of view on that. But they have one thing in common: they not in rush to make this regulations like happen. So they still want to understand. There is lackage of the expertise on their side for sure, because they don't have like people who like real degens who really want to go and work for the government. There's like not so many of them, right? Who really can explain them. At the same time, so they need to spend some quality time to understand, not to make mistakes, right, and make everything properly. So for crypto, it's definitely a good thing to have clear regulations, because after that we will have a huge inflow of the assets to our industry. We will have much clearer vision, and exactly what you're saying about education, right? So people can get this education from the universities, from schools, from other public sources, supported by the government. So it's like proven source which they trust as well, right? And after that, it's going to be easier for them to use. So regulations is of course not every country regulation is good, but let's see who will be one of the first who will make the clear, understandable regulations. Another point, which is actually for us as a VC, which jurisdiction we should choose. And when we choose our jurisdiction, we look at, okay, if we choose the regulation where it's just approved, is also a risk for us, because if we made it and then we have to change our structure of the funds, structure of the assets, of the transaction, of the reports, of the everything is very complicated, right? So of course it takes time. Let's see, and there is a bunch of countries who are actually working on it, and the UAE is one of it. So we'll always keep an eye on it. Yeah.
I mean, you can think of smart contracts as regulation. It is basically laws and mathematics. And I think as people and governments realize that, wait a minute, that's actually better, because regulation that I write on a piece of paper and then I trust that somebody will follow my rules is not as good as the regulation that is in a smart contract.
That's a point of decentralization, right? So definitely it's a good point, but at the same time, just 3 minutes ago, you mentioned about the hacks, about the, still it's a lot of vulnerabilities in the industry. So the same, government cannot rely on some code which is not proven with the time, right? So it should be implemented carefully, where it is really can take off this a middleman and can rely on the code for sure. And I think modern governments will rely on it in the future, but it still takes time.
Oh, you're very optimistic on that?
For sure. Yeah. Rather, why should I be here?
I think governments, for example, should spend a lot of resources and money on auditing contracts, maybe even writing, subsidizing universities to help this industry, because it is regulation, it's just better type of regulation.
I mean, as much as I'm a DeFi maxi, don't you think, Tomasz, that going onto the Cody's law path, it's a slippery slope to take?
No, I don't think so. I think the Cody's law is better, especially in an AI world, right? Where the innovation, the speed of innovation will increase so quickly with AI that you can't write laws on paper and expect for them to be implemented, things will change too quickly. I think the laws have to be on blockchain. I think.
Yeah, I did one more thing about this. So I also believe that the DAO as the form of governance definitely will be one of the dominating in the future. Will take some significant part in the governance at all, but still quite early, because now it's if we start talking about DAO, it's like a lot of things. It's a lot of problems, like control in one hands, people not actively governing what they claim to be governed and stuff like that. So let's wait, let's see how.
Let Laura please add something.
No. We're getting close to the end. I was just gonna say, or from my point of view, say even though I'm more on the side of CeFi and the fact that they can coexist, but at the end of the day, where I see a lot of potential is in somewhat of a convergence of those two different systems, right? Where CeFi can borrow and implement some battle-tested innovation from DeFi as we move, as time kind of goes on, and the other way around, where DeFi can then borrow more from the CeFi world when it comes to, again, as we talked about, user onboarding, user experience. So I think there's definitely a way, like I can see in the future them kind of converging, but still keeping their original identity, original ethos kind of, intact.
Thank you. Since we're running out of time, actually we have 1 minute, so my last question will be a bit tricky, but please give me some short answers. Many people are stepping in this market at the moment for a reason, actually, because BTC price is rising up and so on. So can you please give some advice, short advice, to the newbies and rookies who are just opening this market for themselves, please?
Yeah, of course. Not financial advice, but do try to experiment as much as possible. Start on a cheap layer 2 scaling solution like OP, BNB.
Thank you.
And just play around. Play around with money that you can afford to lose. And then I think that you'll never want to go back to TradFi.
Tomasz?
He said it for me. I was going to say exactly the same thing. Just play, experiment.
Definitely good, advice. And from my side, yeah, definitely don't put too much money on the crypto if you just started, right? Because you will definitely get burned, right? So maybe like 1%, 5%, 10% depends on your total wealth, how much you can take risk. Try first, try DeFi, try CeFi, try different products which exist on the market. And I agree, definitely. After in my personal experience, after a few months in the crypto space, I decided to quit my other businesses and put all in this industry, because I know it's gonna be a huge, huge thing. Okay, thank you.
My very short answer: give a try to Peccala, because that's exactly what we were created for. So yeah.
Amazing, thank you. So thank you guys for listening for us. It was quite insightful, and I think we found the solution. At least I hope so. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.